welcome back to Twisted and Mysterious.
Yeah, hi. Sorry about missing last week. We had more technical difficulties. We lost that episode to a corrupted card.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was the card. I tried everything. I tried to save it to a different device. I tried a new card reader. I tried everything I could think of.
So maybe we'll cover that episode again another time, but we've got a different story for you tonight.
Yes, we do. So, I guess you want to just jump into it, or?
I guess so. I don't really have anything new going on.
Okay. Well, let me set the scene for you.
Okay.
September 25th, 1968.
All right.
A man named Donald Haynes was driving down Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles when he saw a little girl walking down the street and a man in a beige-colored car with no license plate pull over and lure the little girl into his car. He followed the car to a Hollywood apartment where he witnessed the man take the little girl inside, and Donald Haynes called the police. Now, remember,
As one should.
Yes. It's 1968, so no cell phones, so it wasn't like he could just call the police right away. Mm-hmm. He followed them. He found a payphone. He just said that he didn't want to, try to stop the man directly because he didn't know if the man had a gun or anything, right. So he found a payphone. He called the police. So Los Angeles police officer Chris Camacho had just begun his patrol shift and received and responded to the call. He knocked on the door of the apartment, and a man called out from the apartment that he was in the shower and needed to get dressed. Officer Camacho proceeded to kick the door of the apartment in and could see straight into the kitchen where a little girl was lying bleeding on the floor. The suspect had escaped out the back door. 10 years and at least 5 murders later, that same man appeared on and won an episode of The Dating Game.
Yes, I've heard of this creep.
This is the story of Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer.
Yep.
All right. Do you know a lot about him?
I've seen and listened to other podcasts about him, but I didn't retain, a ton of information. I think the most I remember is that he was a photographer.
Yeah. Okay, so this one's kind of long, but we'll just see how we do with that. So Rodney James Alcala was born Rodrigo Jacques Alcala Bucor on August 23rd, 1943 in San Antonio, Texas. He was the third of 4 children born to Raul Alcala Bucor and Ana Maria Gutierrez. When Rodney was 8, his family moved to Mexico, where his father ended up leaving the family 3 years later, and Rodney's mother took the children and moved to Los Angeles in 1954 when Rodney was 11. According to Wikipedia, Rodney attended private schools in Los Angeles and graduated from Cantwell Sacred Heart of Mary School, which, if you can't tell from the name, is a private Catholic school.
Right.
He was on the yearbook. He ran cross country and track. He was popular among his classmates. He was considered academically gifted. Later, when he was in the Army, his IQ was estimated to be at about 135. And if you are like me, and that means nothing to you.
I was going to say, I don't really know anything about IQ points. Yeah. I know that, anything in the double digits is considered kind of low.
Yeah, so I looked up IQ ranges. And according to medicinenet.com, the average person has an IQ range of 90 to 109. 110 to 119 is considered superior intelligence or not gifted, just superior intelligence. 120 to 140 is super intelligence or gifted, and over 140 is considered to be genius.
Okay.
So he's at 135. So he's pretty smart. In 1961, by the way, I also was like, I wonder what my IQ is. So I opened up a thing that was test your IQ in 35 questions or something. And it was really boring. But then I did the whole thing and you got to the end and it was pay $10 for your result.
Those things are. I've taken things that are supposed to tell you different things about your health and all kinds of stuff, and they're pay this much to get your full report.
Yeah. So, I don't know what my IQ is.
I think the last time I had my IQ tested was in elementary school. I don't even know what it was then.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I ever have. I know I was in, a gifted class for a little while in elementary school, but I don't know. Okay, so anyway, back to Rodney. In 1961, he joined the Army and became a paratrooper. Wikipedia says that his commanding officer described him as manipulative, vindictive, and insubordinate.
All right.
Which
Those are all great qualities to have.
Especially in the Army when you're supposed to follow orders all the time. He was disciplined several times for assaulting women, which I'm just like, why wasn't he arrested for assaulting women?
Discipline is not enough.
And apparently not, based on the rest of the story. So he went AWOL in 1964 and hitchhiked from Fort Bragg in North Carolina to his mother's house in California, which is a very long trip.
Yes.
He was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder by a military psychiatrist and was medically discharged.
All right.
After he was discharged from the Army, I'm trying to use the mouse to scroll on my iPad.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's that. After he was discharged from the Army, he attended and graduated from UCLA School of Arts and Architecture.
Okay.
And so, now let's get back to what happened at the beginning of our story. So, as I started with, September 25th, 1968, the little girl was walking down the street. And her name is Tally Shapiro. Her father was a music executive, and her family was living at the Chateau Marmont. Tally was walking to school when a man pulled over and told her that he knew her parents and was going to give her a ride. And because her parents knew so many people, she was like, well, this could be somebody that knows my parents.
This man probably knows my parents.
Because she said that her house was basically like Grand Central Station. I mean, and they had people like Mama Cass and Jim Morrison coming to their house, you know. Yeah. She was just like, I don't know, this could be somebody my parents know. And she also said that she was raised to respect her elders. So she got in the car with him. And he told her that he was a photographer and wanted to show her a poster at his house. And that's how they ended up going to his apartment. So when Officer Camacho busted into the house, Tally was naked in a pool of her own blood with a metal pipe laying across her neck. It was later determined that she had been raped and beaten with the metal pipe, and that Alcala was attempting to strangle Tally with the pipe when the police showed up. They thought she was dead, and they searched the apartment for Alcala, but when they went back into the kitchen, they heard Tally gagging and struggling to breathe. So she was taken to the hospital, where she stayed comatose for 32 days and was hospitalized for many months, but ultimately she did survive the attack.
Good for her.
Yeah, no kidding. She was 8.
Yeah.
So in a recent People magazine interview, Tally said that she remembers him asking her to get in the car and remembers going into the apartment, but that he must have hit her in the head like right after they got into the apartment, because she remembers nothing of the attack. And her parents never told her what happened to her, and she said that she's grateful for that because it would have ruined her childhood.
Right.
She said that now that she's an adult and she knows what happened to her, it's like separate from her, and so she like can process it better, I guess. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it would just sort of ruin my whole life finding out.
I don't know. Like everything that I've like, because I watched 2 48-hour specials and I watched a Dateline episode, and I read the article that or the interview that she did with People, and she just seems very like put together.
Yeah. I mean, some people are like that, but like I said, I think that it would like ruin my whole life finding out.
Yeah. And I guess, like, I don't know, like, she doesn't seem to feel that way, but, like, I don't know if you would feel, like, betrayed by your parents, like, knowing that, like, they kept that from you and, like, you never knew what had actually happened to you. Yeah. Or maybe, like her, just, like, grateful that you were able to live a normal childhood without that, like, weighing on you for your whole, like, growing up years. I don't know. So Alcala had escaped out of the back door and was in the wind, as the saying goes. The police found an ID with Rodney Alcala's name on it, and he was added to the FBI's 10 Most Wanted, and posters were put up in post offices and government buildings. And I was wondering, do they still do that?
I don't know.
I mean, surely they do, right?
Surely. I mean, I feel like I still see, I don't know. I feel like the last time I went to the post office in Artesia, they still had those, but that's been a while.
I was going to say, because, like, I can remember that from being a kid and going to the post office, but I don't spend a lot of time in the post office anymore. Yeah. And so, probably they do. Because, I mean, I know there's the internet, but I don't know. Surely they do. So then the next we hear from our friend Rodney, it's 1971. And he's using the alias John Berger and attending NYU studying film.
All right.
So on June 12th, Cornelia Creeley...
How do you get into college using an alias, though? Don't you need some sort of proof that you are who you are?
I don't know what it was like in 1971.
No.
Like these days, probably.
I just feel like there would be some sort of identification that they needed other than just like a fake license or whatever he was using.
Yeah, I don't know. But he did go to NYU. One source, and it was the only, I can't even remember where I read it, said that he was studying film under Roman Polanski at NYU. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. But whether or not he got in using his alias or whatever, he was still doing this.
Yeah.
So on June 12th, Cornelia Creeley, a TWA flight attendant, had been moving into a new apartment. Her boyfriend went to her apartment when he got off of work and found her door locked and thought that was weird, and he couldn't get in touch with her. When the police came, they found Cornelia dead. She had been raped and murdered in her apartment in New York. She had been strangled with her own pantyhose, and there was a bite mark on one of her breasts. And at the time, the police had no leads, and the case went cold.
Cute.
Yeah. Now they think that probably he, was preying on her while she was moving and probably, offered to help her move. Right. And, So later that summer, Rodney Alcala took a job as a camp counselor at an arts camp for girls in New Hampshire, which is, the exact place he should ever be allowed. Mm-hmm. Or the exact opposite what's the words? The exact last place he should ever be allowed. Yeah. Is that what I said the first time?
No, you said the exact place. But I thought you were being sarcastic.
It probably would have worked better.
I thought it was more like, oh yeah, that's where he should work.
That's exactly where he should work. So he had changed his alias slightly. So he's no longer John Berger, but now he's John Burger, spelled like the sandwich.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I would have rethought that one.
Yeah, especially because he's supposed to be so smart.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I just mean, who wants their last name to be Burger on purpose?
I don't know. Somebody who really likes burgers? I don't know. One day, a couple of kids from the camp had gone into town, I'm guessing to mail letters home or something because they end up in the post office. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember if it was on Dateline or 48 Hours, but they said that it was raining. And so they were just kind of hanging out in the building until the storm passed. Mm-hmm. And they were, just looking around because what else are you going to do? They couldn't play Block Blast.
No.
And so they were looking at the FBI 10 Most Wanted posters that they may or may not still put into post offices.
I'll have to go in a post office. It's been a while since I've been in a post office for more than a second.
So they're looking at the poster and they realize that there's a man on the poster that looks an awful lot like Mr. Burger.
All right, Mr. Burger.
Mr. Hamburger. When they get back to camp, they tell another counselor, and then that counselor goes into town to look at the poster. And the counselor promptly calls the FBI.
Whoa, I know this dude.
Right. So the FBI arrests him and calls the LAPD to let them know that he's in custody and he's returned to California. However, Tally Shapiro's family had since relocated to Mexico, and they did not want Tally to testify for fear of re-traumatizing her. So without their key witness, prosecutors couldn't charge him with rape and attempted murder, and he was instead convicted of child molestation, and he served just 34 months in prison.
That's enough, probably.
It might be enough. I don't think it's enough, though, because of how the rest of the story goes.
Right.
Yes. So, just 2 months after he is released from prison, Rodney Alcala was arrested again for assaulting a 13-year-old girl who he offered to give a ride to school.
He's sweet.
He's the best. He's just looking out for girls walking to school. He served 2 years for that assault and was paroled in 1977 and was required to register as a sex offender. But just like we talked about in the Terry Clark case, the National Sex Offender Registry wasn't even created until 1994.
Right.
And so
what good does it really do you?
Right. And
unless they have to put a yard sign up that says, hey, I'm a sex offender, then I don't really know what good being labeled a sex offender is going to do for
or,
you.
Branded in your forehead or something. I don't know. But, so, this happened after the camp counselor thing. But, I don't know. I guess short of calling the FBI for, a background check for the job or something, they wouldn't have even known that he was a sex offender, like we were just saying. So, I don't know. I don't know that even, the camp counselors, hiring him would have even known.
Right.
So.
I don't know, how it comes up in the 70s. Where would you get the information from?
Exactly. Because, now, you just run a computer check and it brings
and everything
up all of
pops
the things.
Up. But back then there wasn't that option. And so, where would they get the information that this guy is a sex offender?
So I don't know if they would... I don't know. I don't know if they would just call, the FBI or the police station for, a background check. But that seems like a lot of phone calls. And trying to find paperwork and,
But also, who's making these phone calls just to know that this guy's a sex offender?
Yeah, I know.
Who just thinks, I'm gonna call the FBI because somebody moved in next door and...
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure that they're not a sex offender.
Right. I mean, and I guess, as far as, jobs go, I don't know how background checks were conducted then, or even if there were background checks conducted then, so...
And I don't think that everybody hiring somebody is gonna call the FBI and make sure they don't have anything on them.
Right. So, now it's July 1977, and Rodney Alcala's parole officer in Los Angeles makes a questionable decision. He grants Rodney permission to fly to New York. So this man has now been convicted of assaulting 2 little girls and is considered to be a flight risk, but I guess we just let him live a little.
Just let him fly.
Just let him fly. So July 15th, which is believed to be about a week after Rodney arrives in New York, but totally different. I mean, not different, but where's he getting this money from?
Right.
Not only that he can just fly back and forth across the country, but he's staying in New York for a week.
I don't know. I was trying to decide if his family had some money because, he got sent to private schools and...
That's true. Maybe. But, I mean, I guess... Because I was going to say his mom was a single mom with 4 kids, but
if they had already had money, but
that's
I don't know. But you don't usually send your kid to a private school unless you have some money.
Yeah, and nothing that I saw in anything talked about, what his parents did for a living. All it talked about was that they were Mexican Americans and that they had moved to Mexico and the dad left.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. And nothing ever is said about his siblings or anything after that. Yeah. I think one of his sisters makes an appearance a little later, but very briefly.
It's not about them.
It's not about them. So, yeah, I was just how is this man who's spending all of his time in prison and college affording all this travel?
Yeah. Because
prison, you don't make any money, and college takes all of your money. So, I don't know. In July 15th, Ellen Jane Hover disappears. And Ellen was an aspiring musician, and she was the 23-year-old daughter of Herman Hover, who owned the famous Ciro's nightclub in Hollywood. Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. were her godfathers.
All right.
Yeah. She was reported missing by her family. Police searched her apartment, and in her calendar on the day she disappeared was the name John Berger. And remember that Mr. Rodney Alcala had been using that as an alias when he was going to NYU. But at the time, the police didn't have this information. Ellen's body was found a year later, buried under heavy rocks on a hillside near the Rockefeller estate in Westchester. And based on the autopsy, her death was ruled a homicide, but other than the name John Berger, the police had no leads on her killer. And it was later discovered that Rodney had visited this area before. He had apparently taken at least one model there to photograph at some point. By this time, Rodney had already begun his trip back to Los Angeles, only this time he was driving and just kind of meandering his way back across the country.
Right.
And when he returned to Los Angeles, he was hired as a typesetter by the Los Angeles Times. And also at this time, the Hillside Stranglers were active in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And Rodney was actually interviewed by the police in connection with those murders to see if maybe he was the Hillside Strangler.
Right.
He was also still, quote unquote, working as a photographer. He had convinced hundreds of young women and men that he was a professional fashion photographer and took pictures of them for his portfolio. They were often naked.
It's got a lot to do with fashion, you know.
It really does. Let's see. On December 9th, 1977, Rodney killed Jill Terry Barcombe. Jill was an 18-year-old from New York. She was disposed of on a dirt path near Mulholland Drive in Los Angeles. She was found naked from the waist down. She had been strangled with blue rope ties and beaten. There was evidence of sexual assault. She had 3 bite marks on her right breast, so that it seems to be something that he does. Mm-hmm. And apparently the police initially believed that Jill had been the victim of the Hillside Stranglers, but eventually it was determined that her murder was unrelated. And again, they had no leads.
Just lots of creeps hanging out.
No kidding.
Doing stuff.
But I mean, I guess this time it was kind of like rife with serial killers.
I mean, I think always it's rife with serial killers.
I know, but it just seemed like in like the 70s, like there was like Bundy and the Hillside Stranglers, Rodney Alcala and the Green River Killer and Son of Sam, and like all of this stuff was like all going on at the same time. So I don't know. You would think with serial killers, like with the internet, we would hear more about it now. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't, like when you hear about a serial killer, you're like, whoa, there was a serial killer? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening to part 1 of the Twisted and Mysterious podcast. Remember, people are gross and don't get murdered.